I like recording bands live. I love bleed. I like all the things that come with it. And I don't think anybody should really be scared of it. Good mic placement, mic choice, all those things can lead to a really nice recording that sounds like a band actually being recorded together, which is kind of a crazy thought these days. Why did I choose the coincident stereo pair, a figure of eights here for the overhead? This is something that I kind of like in a way because I'm an old live sound engineer, right? And when you go to see a band on stage, right? When you go see a band in concert, and the band is playing, right? I want you all to point at the drummer in your mind. Where is he? Where is he? Just point at him. It's okay. Point at him. It's all right. Where is he? He's right there, right? So that means when I'm here, he's right in front of me. Now, are his cymbals way over here? Are his cymbals way over here? Are his toms way over here? Is the other tom way over here? Okay, this is all things that we do to spread things out. I totally get that, and it totally makes sense. Cymbals being very wide in the stereo field clears the center for vocals and things like that. Totally get that. I, though, kind of like the fact of the drums sort of being this little cool package of awesome in the middle, right? Because a lot of the records I really love, Motown, you know, most of your soul hits, Stax, one drum track on a lot of it, and it's all in the middle. And that locks the groove into the middle of the song. So I often do this. It's not always, but I often do this. Hearing the track and hearing in pre-production, us going back and forth, I heard kind of what was going on with the drums. Not a lot of toms, not a lot of big like cymbal hits, not a lot of all this width. So for me, I can pack the drums down into the middle and then spread the band out around it. And there'll be plenty of space around it, and the drums can kind of live in the middle. And the cymbals will still image left and right. They'll absolute image left and right. But there'll be a tighter left and right because it's a coincident stereo pair. And even cooler, it's a coincident stereo pair of figure of eights. So guess what else it picks up? Everything below it, right? And everything above it. So all this air floating around up here above it is going to go into those overhead mics. And what that does is that for me, allows the cymbals to expand out into the world the way they do. And not be just like, oh, between here and here. You know, and I got to isolate all this. No, this is the world. It's all cool. Beyond that, everything's pretty simple. The tube condensers on the snare drum, he's not playing the snare drum super hard. It's some brushes and it's some side stick stuff. It's cool, so the condensers will be cool. Doesn't take a lot of gain, and I really am a big fan of the bottom snare. I like to record the bottom snare. I don't like to put a lot of EQ. Matter of fact, I'm going to do these today. I'm going to record all the snare drum today with no EQ, none whatsoever. And often I can get away with that. Depending on the microphone choice at my place, I'll use a pair of 57s, obviously. I have a Transformalist 57, which is a 57 with the transformer taken out, and then I have an old 565, is that right? 545 Unidyne, which is a 57 without the transformer, just back from the 60s. I'll use those to have less gain so that the drummer hits it hard. I don't have to pad the preamp because I don't really like pads. But this with the condensers, it's nice and bright and clear. It's great. And then for the condenser, the U67-ish, it's a 300, right? The 300. I'm trying to get. Do me a favor. Can you just sort of play a little bit and get the fingers? Is what I'm trying to get. Yeah, I'm trying to get that. So that pluck, trying to get that pluck. You know, he's not really playing any rockabilly slap bass, but if he was, it's going to work like crazy there. If this is the edge of the speaker, I'm miking them like this. So right out near the edge of the surround, near the edge of the spider out here, like this. And they're right, basically in exact phase alignment, as close as I can get it by looking at it, with them, with each other. Now, why I do that? Well, each one of those microphones has a slightly different tone. One of them is brighter and a little bit more of low end, and the mid-range is scooped out a little bit. And then the other one is a little flatter, across the board, less top end. Can you guess whichever one's which? And I'll take those two and put them up in mono in here and listen to them in mono, and then I'll pan them so that we have a guitar that's actually pseudo stereo, but yet in fact it is stereo because it's two different microphones, two different transfer curves, two different slew rates, two different all those things, and yet they'll mono together perfectly. They'll lock together perfectly and they'll split apart perfectly. So I always record two mics just to hedge my own bets. Sometimes we get in the production of a track, I may feel like, you know what, it would be cool if I doubled this guitar so that I get the really wide guitar sound and double. So then I just take those two mics, put them in mono, put them on one side, and I take the other, then I take the same pass, we record it again, just playing along with the track, and then I'll pan them, hard pan them. And there's certain things you can do. If you have those two tracks side by side, when you go to mix and you want something a little brighter, just take the brighter mic or take the darker mic out of the mix. So no EQ, just treat them like this, like a little tone shaping. It's subtle, but it does work. The thing to do is not get too freaked out about it. I mean, the tiny little amount difference that's there actually probably helps. Now, I have phase checkers. So you put the phase checker in front of it, click, 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 go in the control room, put it in front of the speaker, it tells you if it's in phase or out of phase. Often at my studio, because I have these BK5s, I have all these weird microphones. Some of those BK5s are wired pin 2 hot, some are wired pin 3 hot. I never remember them until it's time to do the session. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not inside phase. But we'll click those out, each one. But I don't worry so much about it, the exact phase. There's a couple really cool things that if you have two guitar mics that you can do by flipping the phase. All right? If you recorded, let's say we recorded this track and he played it and then I had him play a double and I put the double in mono and then I took the other one and flipped him out of phase, you'd get this crazy wide stereo image of the guitars. Like really wide, because the double would be filling the middle and then there'd be all this dissimilar information out on the edges that would sound cool until you hit mono, and then these would completely cancel, but you'd still have the one in the middle. One of the greatest, one of the best songs the Rolling Stones ever recorded, the mix, the piano is out of phase. It's a mono piano on 2 channels flipped out of phase.
I didn't know that. Which song is it?
Sympathy for the Devil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Piano is 100% out of phase. It's a mono piano track flipped out of phase. So if you put that track up and hit mono, the piano disappears completely.
Wow.
Yeah. 100% disappears. It's really cool. Yeah. Now I'm taking a DI, which is a very electronic violin sort of sound, but I want a little bit of that speaker filling into the room, coming into the room. Also the same thing with the bass. The bass amp is on. I'm not miking the bass amp. I don't need 4 mics for 4 channels for the bass, but I'm allowing it to come into the room. Same thing with the electric guitar. Obviously you can see electric guitars in here. I'm just allowing it to come into the room. Part of that is because my room mics here are going to provide a very wide stereo-ish image of the room. This one's obviously going to pick up a lot more of this side of the room. A lot of times in recording live, you can't quite set up like this. Sometimes you have to set up where people sort of face each other for isolation. So here's a really cool, interesting way to do that. If you have some gobos like these were tall gobos. I didn't need them to be so tall, so I laid them over. But if you have some gobos, some foam boxes or foam cubes, styrofoam, the big poly foam, take the loudest instrument in the room. What is that going to be? Right? Pretty much the loudest instrument in the room. Take the loudest instrument in the room, take a mic cable, because the mic cable's a really nice measuring stick.
Oh, okay.
So here's what we're gonna do here. I'm
I
gonna
don't know if this is
take
gonna be long enough or not.
Okay, we'll see.
For another one.
Yeah, that's true. So you just hold that right there in the middle of your snare. You
This
can kind of hold that.
might do it.
You might get it.
What you get, dude.
Cool. So I think this is gonna be the short side. Watch yourself here. We were gonna do this yesterday, and I was like, oh no, let's do it when everybody's in here. And so, all right, cool. So right about there.
Yep.
Just hand that to me. Awesome. Perfect. That's great. Close enough. So what I'll do often, and I'm gonna just hold that right there. I'm just gonna cheat a little bit. Is if I'm doing like a band that has a drummer but acoustic instruments, is I'll take this and I'll take my assistant and I'll do it. We'll take a piece of tape, white tape, and we'll just put marks all along an arc here, all along the floor, all the way around. And then, okay, it's cool. And then I'll set up stations, microphone stations, along that arc. So the microphones themselves sit exactly all on that arc, which means they're in time with the loudest thing in the room. Now, what's good about that? One unified front across all the microphones, one unified set of pressure, everything. It basically keeps a lot of flutters and things like that out of your mix. And you can get away with a lot of bleed in the mix and still have, you know, a good sounding mix without it being, you know. It's like somebody doesn't know how to wind up my cables here. Because these have been wound around somebody's arm at some point. So yeah, so this is what I normally call the front mic. It's a mono room. It's not really so much room as like a mono lower drum track. It's gonna pick up a little bit of the kick drum. If there's a tom, a rack tom, it's gonna catch the bottom of the rack tom. That rack tom bottom hit without putting a mic on it. And it's a little bit of the bottom snare. This, sometimes I move around and get it in different places. Sometimes I'll move it out farther. With this track, he's not playing very loud. Can you kind of just play a little bit for me? I play a little bit of that groove, like the verse groove thing. Cool. So if I move it too far, great. If I move it too far out, it's going to be too much in the room. So I'm pretty much moved it up pretty close. And I got a little bit of EQ on it. I'm not doing any compression on it to tape. Normally I probably would. Normally I'd really process it, put a lot of compression, make it really pumpy, but I didn't do that on this because I'm going to do it in the mix. We'll talk about it in the mix part of it. So other than that, that's kind of it.